On today's episode of DeRaud-Messinger Show, we're previewing and predicting number 24, Dylan. Number 24, Kansas at number 3, Texas. Longhorns fans, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. It's greatly appreciated. So to begin, as always, basic game info. And as always, I want you to arrive at the right stadium. Don't be showing up in Kansas, folk. Don't do it. It's happened before. Don't do it.
I heard it's great this time of year, though.
Might be great this time of year, according to Dylan. Hopefully Kansas fans can verify that. The game will be on Saturday, September 30th at 2:30 p.m. Central Time at Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium in Austin, Texas. The game is televised, Dylan, on ABC. I love a good ABC game. And the Longhorns, surprisingly or not, are favored by 16.5 points. Dylan, get into your offensive scouting report. I let you take offense this week. How kind of I to do. But how are you feeling about the Kansas Jayhawk offense?
Yes, Devon, I appreciate your philanthropy after 2 weeks straight of defense. I had to change it up here, and it got a little weird. I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know how to dissect the quarterback anymore. So here we are. But Leipold, he's done incredibly well, Devon. You've seen the turnaround in the past. I don't know. I believe it's like 2 years. I know last year it was the big turnaround for them. But obviously, the last time they played Texas, I believe they lost 55-14 or something around those lines last year. So was not a pretty sight. But this year looks like it could be a little different for this Kansas team, especially just with the consistency now playing out. They have offensive coordinator Andy Kotelnicki. He's going into his third year as offensive coordinator and was recently promoted to assistant head coach at the end of last season, Devon. I'm talking about him because they were ranked second nationally last season with 7 yards per play behind Ohio State at 7.6. This
I
is
like
an
how
offense
you had
that
to
loves to get
stutter
creative.
there. Didn't want to admit Ohio State.
I kind of wanted to forget a little bit.
Okay. Back to your
Got to
scouting
give teams
report.
respect. Yeah. Don't make me do an Ohio State breakdown right now. This is an offense that loves to get creative in the running game and then opening up the pass game through it, right? But they are definitely a run-heavy team as seen just through their stats, right? They're 17th in the country in yards per play with 7.2 this season. They're 13th in the country in rush yards with 217.8 and averaging 5.5 per rush. They're 27th in the country in points at 37.8, and they've been scoring all year, right? Now the competition has been a little suspicious in the sense of they played Missouri State, Illinois, who
Brett,
a
Bielema.
formidable
Come
Big
on
Ten,
now.
formidable Big Ten opponent.
Formidable,
but
yeah.
They scored 34 on them, yeah. Then 31 on Nevada, who has not won a game yet, and then scored 38 on BYU. And they've done a lot of that just with their legs when it comes to Devon Neal at running back, and then Jalen Daniels, who is healthy right now, which is a great sign for them. And the biggest thing with how they kind of utilize Daniels is kind of in the run option. They like to kind of go 2 running backs in a set next to him and make the defense kind of have to guess if he's going to do a keeper, hand it off to the running back, or it's going to fall into a pass play. So there's a lot of kind of play action and QB draws involved in their offense. So that's something that Texas is going to have to be kind of on their heels about. Luckily, they had a good practice with it when it comes to like Jalen Milroe against Alabama, right? In the way that Alabama was trying to get him to kind of get outside the pocket and do some damage with his legs. So you'll kind of see that with Jalen Daniels in a sense, but I would say he does have a better arm, right? He's got 74.7% completion rate, 705 pass yards this season, Devin, with 5 touchdowns and an interception. His completion rate ranks second in the Big 12. Cover your ears, but it's behind Dylan Gabriel of Oklahoma. He's number 2 in pass yards.
And Daniels missed the first game, Dylan, too.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Injury. So, yeah, the yardage being where it is, pretty decent for missing a game. But I'll let you continue on.
No, he's playing really well. And then he's got 74 yards rushing in 3 games. So you'd probably like that a little higher if you were a Kansas fan, the Kansas coaching staff. But again, they've still been winning. And they've had a lot of success with their own running backs, right? With junior running back Devon Neal, who I know has played incredibly well.
Awesome
he
first
his name differently
name.
Than you. Does he count, though?
Awesome
does it count, though?
Awesome first name. I know it's spelled differently, but we stick together. We stick together. But Neil,
But
Dylan has
that's the
been
thing.
phenomenal running back. I don't want to get into a Devon rant here. Phenomenal running back.
Well, I was going to talk
And
about how I don't recognize Dylan Gabriel because he pronounces his name wrong.
well, that's a you thing.
So it's a
Devons are a
okay,
little more
all right.
embracing of the people. But Jalen Daniels,
Fair
Dylan,
enough.
just to jump in real quick, it is interesting, like you
Yeah.
said, the rushing yards has not been as high as it typically would be. And I do think it's because in the past, maybe half season, if we go back to last year too, he's just been getting injured and, accumulating these
Sure.
small injuries. He missed week 1, I believe, with a stiff back. And I think Leipold's probably just told Daniels, like, we would love to run you, like, 30 times a game if possible because he's a great athlete, but we need you healthy. And Kansas is undefeated because of that. So I think that's part of probably the design has been to limit his running, at least so far. But yet again, like maybe that's a wrinkle that they've been waiting for this Texas team to introduce. So I'll let you continue on in your love of Devons.
I was about to say because now is the time to profit off of your investment, right? So if they were saving him in the first 4 games, this is the game where you're probably going to see more of Daniels running, right? And then with the running backs, Devin Neal 4th in the Big 12 with 394 yards rushing. Trevor first in rush touchdowns with 5. And they've got him utilized in the passing game with 11 receptions, 145 yards, and a touchdown, right? So he's been very proficient this year, playing really well. And then you've also got redshirt junior Daniel Hillshaw Jr., Devin, who's 10th in the Big 12 with 235 yards rushing. So they've got 2 top 10 running backs in the Big 12, and then he's second in rush yards per attempt with 7.1 in the Big 12. So again, I'm highlighting their running game because that is just such a big part of the reason they've been playing so well, right? Especially on offense. And then you've got receivers in Lawrence Arnold, who's 6'3", 200. He's the leading receiver at 246. Again, the pass yards or when it comes to like their number 1 receiver, it's kind of all over the place. But when it comes to like receptions per game, the highest amount of receptions one player has had in a game is 5. And that's been Lawrence Arnold and then Mason Fairchild at tight end, who stands at 6'4", 260. So you haven't seen an 8+ kind of reception game for anybody, but Lawrence is the big target for them. They've got Luke Grimm standing at 6 foot, who's had 175 yards rushing. So he's somebody that they kind of like to utilize kind of in the middle of the field. And then they got junior Quentin Skinner, who stands at 6'5", 195, 12 receptions, 173 yards.
6'5", 195. Oh boy.
Yeah, so he's a tall dude. So that's somebody to be wary of for Texas as well, just with their size and kind of we'll talk about it later. But that Texas secondary and how susceptible they've been recently. And then I want to talk about the offensive line because they've got O-line coach Scout Fuchs. He came from Buffalo, Devin, and I'm talking about that because there's 2 transfers from Buffalo on their offensive line too. So that's a unit that they've built out up front and kind of really helps with the running game.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan, you love that offensive line talk right there. I'm surprised you didn't go for another 10 minutes. Give me finally some chance to talk here. Oh, my goodness. But no, I don't. I've seen clips of Daniels. My good friend CJ Vogel posted on Twitter. Daniels had like 10 seconds in the pocket occasionally, I believe last weekend against BYU. The offensive line has been doing work. But I'm not going to bore you with offensive talk. It's time to get the defensive hat on, Dylan.
Okay.
I got some rankings for y'all. That's right. Dylan is not doing defense anymore. Devin stepped in. 25th rushing defense. That is a surprising stat to read, especially after Kansas, as Dylan kind of illustrated earlier, was not as hot last year, defensively at least. He read a score earlier. Texas is 18th in rush defense, just for comparison, so 25th to 18. But Kansas also 47th in pass defense. Of course, there's a ton of schools, so don't take that 47th as being bad. Just take into account that there's a ton of schools, hundreds if you will, Dylan. In total defense in terms of yards, 21st in total yards. But great in terms of yardage. The scoring defense is a little bit below that. They slipped to 58th. So while they have limited yards, they have allowed a little more scoring than what their yards would indicate. And like Dylan said, the competition so far this year has not been too stellar, to be honest. Of course, BYU last weekend they had some difficulties, Dylan, but the defense also showed out in that game too, allowing, I put it later in my notes, but I got too excited. They only allowed 9 yards to BYU. And Dylan made a good point. Maybe that's a indicator of BYU's rushing attack, which might be the case. But Slovis, BYU's quarterback who did pass for over 350 yards, also threw 2 interceptions, which is what I'm going to talk about here. Because that quarterback for the Kansas Jayhawks, Dylan, the Big 12 preseason first teamer, Junior Kobe Bryant, spelt differently, so don't get excited, guys. But he has been impactful for the Jayhawks in that Kansas secondary, already accounting for 2 interceptions. And along with Bryant, you got senior corner, also Quentin Lassiter, who, guess what, Dylan, also has 2 interceptions.
Uh-oh.
So if there's something to know about this Kansas Jayhawk team just off the first 2 names I've mentioned, if I can dumb it down and just speak plainly, they create turnovers. They actually, Dylan, are tied with Texas in terms of turnovers created so far this season. Yet again, stellar competition, no. But you could also argue the same for Texas, I would say. Besides Alabama, is there a team on their schedule that has been, wow-worthy? No offense to Baylor. We had our shots, non-intended shots. We had our Baylor shots last weekend. Mostly courtesy of Dylan. I was very polite about my shots. But I don't want to give him time to talk. You'll just take another 10 minutes here. And then Dylan likes to rant against my theory of safeties leading in tackles equates to not a good team. And I'm sticking with it. Kenny Logan Jr., the senior safety for Kansas, leads the team in tackles, which, yet again, usually not too great of a sign. He has made a couple at or behind the line of scrimmage, which is a good indicator, though, I would say, because usually my theory, applies when they're way behind or beyond the line of scrimmage, I should say. But Kenny Logan Jr., he's been that guy for a couple years now for Kansas, and there's no knock to them. The Kansas defense, like I said, has definitely stepped up this season. It's not the same Kansas defense that we've seen in the past. Now, linebackers, there's a pair of them. You got senior linebacker Rich Miller, continuing on the streak of good names, and junior J.B. Brown, who is the linebacker that is more so a threat behind the line of scrimmage. So fans, watch that Texas offensive line, see if they can pick up J.B. Brown on the rush. The defensive line, Dylan, this is also interesting. You got redshirt sophomore Austin Booker, who, get ready for it, stands in at 6'6" and has 3.5 sacks already this year. And he's paired with junior Jeremy Robinson, 6'3". So they do have size up front. I don't know if they have necessarily as much meat as T'Vondre Sweat. I don't know if you guys were watching the Baylor game, but Sweat literally was bigger than Baylor's biggest offensive line, and you could see that from the press box, which, let me tell you, it's pretty high up there. I was almost closer to the stars, Dylan, than I was the field. Yeah, just to talk about that a little bit. But overall, yet again, we've gone on this little scouting report for a little while, so I just wanted to credit, as Dylan mentioned earlier, head coach Lance Leipold for doing a great job with this Kansas team so far, because yet again, in years past, this would have been almost no offense to Kansas, but it would have been a laughing matter in terms of Texas versus Kansas. Now they're ranked 24th coming into Austin, and Dylan, for all those Longhorns fans, plug your ears at home. They beat Texas in 2021, not too long ago, just 2 seasons ago. Of course, both teams are better since then, but emphasis on both teams are better since then. This is going to be a tough matchup for Longhorns. Now, Dylan, how are you feeling with your X factors?
Yeah, I got to go with my matchup of kind of the week here in the sense of it's going to be Jalen Daniels' arm against his Texas secondary. We saw them get burnt by the speed of Baylor in certain plays, right? The front 7 for Texas were able to kind of overcome that a little bit with just the pressure that they were creating, so it was harder for Baylor to kind of get going in their passing game, as well as their quarterback, was it Richardson or Robertson? Just being kind of banged up.
Robertson was
going into it.
the second stringer that came in because of Shapen's injury.
Yep. So with him being banged up, it helped in that sense. But with Daniels being healthier, right, Devon, this season, who knows kind of what could happen in this sense. He's got the arm for it. He's also got the wheels to get around and extend plays. So kind of want to see kind of how Jahdae Barron and Ryan Wands kind of bounce back those cornerback positions going into this, as well as Jaron Thompson and Jalen Catalon. Just kind of how they handle it, whether Kansas is going to be able to take those deep shots or if Texas is going to be able to kind of play better than they did last week and keep the focus on purely the run game, right? Because if it's going to go that way, then I think Texas has a great shot just with the front seven that they have.
Yeah, I think that is definitely the most interesting one to watch, and the one that's going to be the most eventful and fun for fans to watch is that Texas secondary against Jalen Daniels. Especially like Dylan said, they gave up some plays to Robertson, who is the Baylor backup quarterback. Of course, like I said, filling in for Blake Shapen. That game could have been a little bit different had Shapen been there, but when I mean a little bit different, I don't know, Dylan. Baylor just they're in a rebuild or something this year. But X factors, the less fun one to watch, but still you gotta give this group love when you can. The Texas offensive line is my X factor here. Like I mentioned earlier, Kansas only allowed 9 rushing yards to BYU last weekend. This Texas offensive line, of course, has the talent. We know about all the 5 stars and just also increased experience as well with Christian Jones being there seemingly forever. He's played with who's the guy I like to tease with on Kansas. Oh my gosh, I'm losing my curveball. The Kansas basketball player. Anyway,
No.
Christian Jones has been there for a while.
Oh,
Perry
Perry
Ellis,
Ellis.
thank you. Golly. Christian Jones has been there since Perry Ellis left Kansas. But no, Jones was on record earlier this week talking about how the 2021 Kansas game was an eye-opener for him, and he took it very personally. He did talk about, I believe, that he was kind of depressed after, questioning whether he is the guy that he thinks he is. And since then, he's literally turned around from being a liability on the offensive line to now he's arguably, yet again, Kelvin Banks, maybe the most talented, but I would say Christian Jones is right there with him in terms of leadership up front. Perry Ellis, my gosh, I'm always on fire with those. But the offensive line, yet again, Kansas has only allowed 9 yards against BYU rushing. The offensive line has been inconsistent. They're going to need to create a push in the Texas run game. Of course, that was there last weekend against Baylor and the weekend before against Wyoming. Against Baylor, Texas found the end zone plenty of times on the ground, but also in the passing game. Quinn Ewers is going to have time to be able to set his feet and throw in the pocket. He's stayed out of the turnover column thus far. No jinxing. I'm knocking on wood for Longhorns fans that are mad at me for mentioning that at home. But Quinn is going to need time, especially if the run game is not going to be as prevalent this weekend as it has in weeks past. So Dylan, we're going to danger level. You told me before recording that this might surprise you, but I didn't ask for the danger level because I wanted to be surprised. So Dylan, what did you end up rolling with here?
I have it as a 4, Devon. So it was like a little bit above, I think around the area where I said Baylor. But I think Kansas is a good team, but I think Texas is kind of like their weakness, right? Like, I don't think it's going to be a shootout with Texas, just with the defense that the Longhorns have, right? They're currently ranked 19th in the country against the run. They're only allowing 87.3 yards per game. So they're going to be able to take away what Kansas does best. And so, as I highlighted in the X factors, it's going to come down to the passing game for Kansas. And we've seen enough. They haven't come up against a front 4 like this and such talented linebackers that the Longhorns have, right? So it's something that they just hasn't really seen yet. So this game might get a little mucky. And I think that just, again, it plays more so to Texas's favor, especially if Texas gets out to an early lead and Kansas is playing catch up the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, that is surprising. I did go a little bit higher, but not too much higher. I went with the 5, Dylan. And 5 is still a decent score. 5 is, it really depends on what type of day Texas is having. That's 50-50 ball right there. Yet again, not been the greatest, I guess, start for, our danger level predictions, Dylan. We went a lot higher. I mean, I wouldn't say high. I gave Baylor, I think, a 4. But I think that was kind of deserving. I mean, at times I kind of showed that. But I'm going to go 5 here yet again. Kind of a jump ball. But the Kansas defense, Dylan, this is where I'm going to feast, guys. I've been waiting for this danger level section. I've warned Dylan about this danger level section. The Kansas team knows how to beat Texas. I mentioned it earlier. They beat the Longhorns, albeit a different team. Yes, I know. Both teams have improved, though. They beat the Longhorns in 2021. Additionally, as Dylan so kindly let me do the defense this week, the defense has improved as well. Things are looking good in Lawrence. And guess what? This team has playmakers. You got the Offensive Player of the Year preseason Big 12 media poll in Jalen Daniels. Still yet to play a great defense. But you know what? To quote the other guys, Dylan, the Jayhawks now have a taste of Longhorn. The Jayhawks now have a taste of Longhorn, and they're ready to feast. They're ready to feast this week, Dylan. But they have the talent to back it up. Can they back it up? I'm not sure. I'm going to 5 on the danger level. The danger level's there. This isn't a Kansas team of years past. This is more of a Perry Ellis basketball, football conversion going on, where they're a threat. I'm going 5. Longhorns.
Is Kansas... Is Kansas the tuna? And
in this case, Kansas is the tuna. Great movie. If you guys don't understand what I'm saying, you need to... We lost Dylan.
That was great.
I'm going to full screen Dylan. You're losing his stuff.
Turn that back. Go back. I got that one place of tears. All right, do we want to talk about the score prediction now or more other games?
I'm gonna let you open the score predictions here.
Okay. Well, to pull it back, Devon, as my face gets progressively redder right now and I'm sweating everything. This is horrible. Okay. I have Texas winning 30-24. This is going off the rails. But I expect Texas to not go off the rails. I expect them to come back with this full force. Like we've talked about kind of with Alabama, we've seen kind of the talent that the Longhorns have with their linebacking core, specifically David Benda, Jalen Ford, and Anthony Hill, especially just as the fair animal that he is as they uncaged him from the box, Devon, that you've so kindly brought up about just how Anthony Hill has been able to play.
Caged up dog. Just gotta let him loose.
Exactly. On a QB spy, I think that plays really well into Texas's favor. That's why I have them winning 38-24 in this one. And I'm gonna pull myself back together here.
That's not fair. I also have visible tears. I was laughing a little too hard here. Yet again, Kansas is no team to laugh at. We were laughing there, but I brought up a great quote just showing Kansas has potential in this one. And I'm hyping it up. I think it's going to be closer than the Baylor game. I have Texas winning 34-20. That's actually the same score I predicted last weekend if you guys go on record. And yeah, I was wrong there. I think it's going to be a little bit closer this weekend. The key to this game for Longhorns is what they did against Baylor. Can they come and create a decent-sized cushion in terms of a lead early? Against Baylor, they did that. Were able to, of course, eventually roll in their backup players late in the game. But, I mean, even before you get to the second half, Texas had a little bit of a lead. Against Kansas, of course, they do have a taste of Longhorn. But what's going to give them a better taste of Longhorn is if they're in this game for a long period of time. The longer they're in it, the more taste of Longhorn they have. They're going to have the tuna just ready to pounce on Texas. Of course, offensively, the key for Texas is Quinn Ewers in this one. Like I said, Keaton Slovis last weekend for BYU was the leader. Gave them a chance, but did throw 2 interceptions. So that's my note. I talk about it every weekend, but Dylan, really, limiting turnovers is a major key, of course, to winning football games. Of course, time of possession helps too when you can get both. Oh, what a combo. But Quinn Ewers, can he throw for 350 yards? 3 touchdowns, stay out of the turnover column? If so, this will be the type of game that Sarkisian is wanting in terms of just game planning. Things will be falling into place. If Ewers falls into that turnover column, however, or is just passing inefficiently, it is going to be tough because this Kansas defense has been able to do a good job of stopping the run. Now, I say that, and they're not going to do it this weekend because, it's the Devon jinx, so my apologies in advance to Kansas. But defensively for Texas, the key is going to be to make Jalen Daniels uncomfortable in the pocket. As Dylan mentioned, he has the ability to run and hasn't done it too much yet this season. However, that doesn't mean he can't do it. As Dylan was saying, this might be the week to let him run free. The offensive version, if you will, of Anthony Hill. You got to uncage the dog, let him go run, make plays. Jalen Daniels has been that guy. Offensive Player of the Year, of course, like I said, in the preseason poll. He's going to hurt Texas, Dylan. I mean, unless this Texas defense just continues on and just beats the living heck out of every player on opposing offenses, Daniels is going to have his moments. Yet again, Robertson for Baylor had some of his moments, and he, no offense to Robertson, is not as good of a player, at least right now, as Daniels. Daniels is going to have his moments. Can Texas bend but not break? That's been the story of the season so far. The defense has let up some big plays, but the rest of the group has pitched in together. We'll see about that. I do have Texas winning, though, 34-20. Now, more importantly than our predictions, of course, what is your score prediction for this weekend's Kansas versus Texas game? Let us know down below. Don't forget to visit us at HornSports.com, as this is part of our HornSports coverage. Everything is free. It's a great place to be. This is America. This is why we love it. Yeah. And as always, have a great rest of your day.